Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Day in the Life, where I catch up with people I know about life and work. And today we're joined by Michael Nestor, who is a music educator. And I have a really hard time thinking of him as anything other than Mr. Nestor because he was one of my band directors in Southeast Georgia, but he's now in Atlanta at the Mount Vernon School. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to catch up. So the first kind of question I had for you is just around how did you get into music? What made you pick up a saxophone?
So I'll give the shorter but entertaining version of the story. It's essentially around, we were living in Germany. My parents were in the military. My mom got out, but my dad got orders to go to Germany, so we're living there. And the church that we went to read out of hymnals. There were no instruments, so it was a music leader, worship leader, pitch pipe, and so for reading the hymnals, I was like, okay, well, I guess you read music left to right because that's the way the words were. And then I went, oh, hey, look, there's these funny little, which I now know were notes. I didn't know at the time. I'm like, okay, well, I see. If we're moving left to right, I wonder if I can read those. And I started to notice, hey, when the pitch goes up, the notes go up. When the pitches go down, the notes go down. So I said, okay, well, let's try that. Then I figured, why are all the ladies singing the top and why are all the guys singing the bottom? So I'll try and sing some of this bottom stuff. Oh, it's too low. Maybe I try the next bottom one. That might be fine. So I basically taught myself how to read and music and sort of had a theoretical concept for it, oral concept for it before I moved back to the States. And honestly, the only reason why I'm playing saxophone is because I had no clue what I wanted to play. And my dad just said, you're going to play saxophone because he really liked smooth jazz. And I was like, whatever, as long as I get to play an instrument, that's fine. So that's the complicated story of how I started playing saxophone. I've been playing since sixth grade.
That's pretty cool. I still feel like I have a hard time reading music for singing whenever I'm in church and looking at a hymnal. I'm like, I know the notes, but for singing, I don't know. I have all this anxiety about trying to produce the right note when I'm singing. I just usually follow along with people. It's pretty cool. What made you decide to become a music educator?
Earlier on, it was because I thought I was just naturally good at it, so that it would be a smart career choice. And actually, so I went through college about a year and a half in. I was like, there are aspects of music that are real hard. Maybe I misjudged the fact that I wanted to be an educator, a music teacher. So I actually dropped out and went into computer science for about a half a year or maybe a year. And I remember the exact moment that I decided to change back to music education. I was headed to my programming class, and I walked into the room. It was dark, and we had the flat desk, so you'd had to look down at the monitor, which makes it easier to code or whatever. And I just stepped into the room, and I looked around, and it was quiet. You just hear the clickety clack of keys, and I went, I don't like this. I was like, I needed the randomness of working with other musicians or teaching kids, because kids are always random. And it was like that was the moment where I realized that things aren't supposed to be. Everything can't be easy. Like there's always going to be stuff that quite honestly it makes you struggle. But I wanted all of that aspect because I wanted everything else that came with it. So I was like, that's fine. Hard work is hard work no matter what. It'll be fine. And so there it was. I really love sharing my passion and experiences with people who are open to those experiences. I'm not looking to teach, the most amazing people all of the time or anything like that. It's something that you enjoy and you have passion for right there and then. I love to help people at that point.
That's cool. And it's good you had that realization before you were at some company coding all day.
Yeah. That would have been a hard shift to make. Luckily, it was college where shifting anything like that is still easy.
Easy and expected. Well, so what, I guess, I mean, you were talking, you went to college and you were studying music, but what like classes, or what's the educational background you need to do what you're doing?
Um, so it's real complicated. Well, I won't say it's complicated. It's complex because there's just so many things about being an educator, especially a music educator, that folks really don't know about until they're in it. And then even if you're told, it still doesn't matter because you have to experience those things. Clearly, just for an instrumental music major, it's the knowledge of, there's possibility that you're going to have to teach every single instrument: flute, clarinet, oboe, bassoon. And so you want to try and know as much about those instruments as you possibly can through college. So that way, your first learning opportunity, or your first opportunity to teach and give information, isn't from an empty cup. So you're trying to fill that information up. I actually basically volunteered for every single ensemble that I could possibly get into on campus, because my thought process was, if I don't have an instrument in my hands, I'm going to have to sing. So therefore, taking a choir class is great. I'm a bassoonist, and that gives me into orchestra. So I'm going to take an orchestra class. I'm going to take these string methods classes because I don't know anything about strings and I'm terrible at it. So if I'm terrible at it now, but I might be conducting an orchestra, it would be helpful to at least know what things I struggle with so I can communicate those things better. Same thing with percussion. And so it's really just, I think the thing that's helped me out tremendously is just having when I was younger and in college, just thinking, I don't know what's coming. So why don't I try to learn everything that I can? It didn't hurt that I was like a musical nerd. It just being in performing ensembles to me was just the highlight of college. Going to math class, meh. Psychology, great class, enjoyed it, not my highlight. Sitting in a rehearsal, however, that was key.
Yeah. And so after college, what does your career path look like?
So after college, I started teaching at a high school in Savannah. I was there for about a year and a half before and the reason why I got into that school, the principal at your school, well, I don't know if Lang Brandon, no, I guess Lang was gone by the time you got into
I was
school.
in the
So
same year as his daughter Lily, so
that's
he
right.
left when Lily, yeah.
Yeah. So when Lang left, Lang went to the school that I ended up working at because I applied. He saw my name and he said, "All right, I know him. That's one less." I honestly think that's one less person that I really have to try and dig deep on to find out what they're about and if they're a good fit. So I worked there for a year and a half. I transferred to a middle school. In the second year, just because the numbers at the high school dropped and things weren't looking all that great for the music program there. And then I got a call from Sean close to the end of that stint to go teach at South Effingham, where we ended up connecting. But like the whole trajectory of my teaching has been, I've been teaching almost always some form of middle school and high school. And it's just basically trying to figure out what people are into at the school, and then trying to help link them up with that. And now I'm doing primarily like jazz education, which is again something I did not expect. I'm very happy I took all the jazz band classes and combo classes that I did in college, because I think that gave me at least a firm foundation to get started as a jazz educator, where I think a lot of other music teachers may not be as confident as I was doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so what do you like about the middle and high school age ranges?
I like I like sixth grade because basically it's the last time I think anybody ends up teaching a group of kids that are like, I don't know anything, please teach me. I think there's so many different ways that they learn about this, that, and everything else that sixth grade is a sixth grade band class, like the last time that a student is looking at a teacher as a authority figure not like, in terms of discipline, but just like you are the person that knows about these things, and I want to learn what I can. But then seventh grade happens, and seventh grade is like an abyss of just emotions and all that fun stuff. It's still fun to teach them. They still, but they're developing into people. So the fun part becomes, if you make an imprint on them in sixth grade, in seventh grade you start to see it when all the hormones and physiology and all that fun stuff is going on. And then eighth grade is like you get to see the mini representation of the human being that they might end up becoming. And just through all that journey, it's just being there to try and consistently have music as a part of their formation as a an independent person. To me, that's like incredibly special, and I actually absolutely love that part about teaching middle school kids. It's certainly not hearing hot cross buns or G's against G sharps and all that fun stuff, but it's really just dealing with their little personalities. And then high school is just the fun part about high school is like actually being there when they truly start to become intellectual beings, and trying to help them through the musical growth too. And then watching the type of friendships that people start to have and the way they start to become student leaders, until the senior year where there's like this fully formed, or close to fully formed, you got to watch some of them, person about to go to college, and then the ride's over. So yeah, but it's 6 through 12 is just amazing. I really enjoy having access to kids all throughout that grade level, watching them grow and mature, and being there for them as a music educator is just a great thing.
Yeah. So what age range are you teaching now?
So currently at my school, I'm kind of, the program's been on a 2 or 3 year hiatus, so they haven't really had a music program. So right now, primarily I'm teaching sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. But the idea is that my position will expand as the music program grows. So next year I may also be teaching a high school, maybe like ninth and 10th graders who are interested. And it's pretty, there aren't really any limitations on what I may end up covering. But at the school, I'm still like, the thing that kind of drew me here was knowing that not only am I starting the middle school program, but if things go really well, I will kind of move with them into the high school, and just having that contact with all those kids in a smaller school environment is just it's something I've not done before, and I always like having new challenges, something to keep it fresh. I mean, again, that's why I didn't want to do computer science. Like I wanted to have these sort of these experiences that are different and changing, and because it challenges me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So with your so you're specifically focusing on jazz in your program?
I am, like, we don't, it's an independent school, and so the numbers are small, and independent schools always run into the problem of you only have 100 kids in your grade level, and so that's like 10, and most band programs tend to have about 15 to 20%, middle school band programs, about 15 to 20% of the middle school population. So even at 15%, that's still only, I don't know, 15 kids. And if you only have 15 sixth graders, 15 seventh graders, and possibly 15 eighth graders, that music program is going to live. And then there's also other teachers at the school. So I can't just have a massive 60-person ensemble, because there's only 40 other kids, and how the teachers working that out. So it's just being an independent school, doing a jazz band seems to make more sense, because if I have 15 kids, I pretty much have a jazz band, as long as the instrumentation works out. And so that's why the focus is there on jazz. But I also believe just having taught the last couple of years in a program that at an art school where we had a pretty sizable concert group, and we had a pretty sizable jazz, or not a sizable jazz ensemble, but for a jazz ensemble, a good jazz ensemble, I always saw more growth out of the kids that were involved in that jazz ensemble than I saw with the students that were involved in the concert ensemble. And I think that's just because the way jazz and improvisation challenges people, and it really challenges their skill set, and they're more individual in the jazz ensemble, that I think there just tends to be more growth. And so that was another factor for trying to bring a jazz program into the independent school I'm now working in.
That is so true, because every time I've been in a jazz band, I'm like the only person on the part, or maybe the like, and so then it's like, it's just me. And then the improvisation is also huge. And I feel like you have to get over a lot of stage fright and just go for it. And I definitely see that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to teach kids when it comes to improvisation, though, it's like, you're the only person that knows what you want to play, or what you
Oh,
wanted to
cool.
play.
Uh-huh.
Everybody else is just there to experience what you end up putting out there. So when it improvisation, it's kind of like life, and it's a great way for approaching like insecurities. Like, you don't know that I'm insecure unless I say something about it. You do know, because if you think about it, we all have these things that make us nervous or that we feel uncomfortable with. And improvisation, when you're on a stage, yes, we all know it can be extremely uncomfortable, right? But again, nobody knows that you meant to do and instead you play, like nobody notices except for you. And as long as you don't let the cat out of the bag, and it's great.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you just meant to do that. Of course, obviously. That's really cool. And I love that advice of just like nobody knows what you intended to play, because it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm supposed to play this. But with music, there should be room for creativity, I think, because it's a very
Absolutely.
creative field. Yeah. So yeah, talking about all the different instruments, what did you find challenging about learning the different ones, and what did you enjoy about that process?
Oh man, challenging was understanding that even though I have the understanding, that does not mean that I am going to translate that into the skill. You know, like measuring. Like, I swear, everybody knows that they can use a tape measure and measure, right? But when you have to do that for like our carpentry project, the amount of second guessing and having to make sure and stopping because you're like, it's like, oh man, am I doing this the right way? And then you find out you mismeasured, or you do something, you're on the wrong side of the tape. Like, there's all these little nuances with that sort of carpentry, right? Getting that with all of the instruments is probably the thing that frustrates me most, because it's like, I know what I need to do to play clarinet. I know what I need to do. Why can I not make the clarinet do it? It's because I haven't spent enough time to be able to do it without thinking, so that's the most frustrating thing. But I think the part that's also very the part I love the most is that I've always approached music as music. I've always approached being a musician as being a musician. It just so happens that my musicianship is on saxophone this one day or bassoon the next day. And so just being able to translate all those things I know as a musician to whatever instrument I'm playing, knowing the only thing that's getting in the way of that is just the skill. And that keeps me grounded, because that also helps when I'm looking at someone who plays clarinet, all the time, and they're just ripping stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do. That's not my job. My job is to cover this other part in the musical, so that way you can do those things.
Totally. And it's just the practice that you would need for that. Like, yeah, it's like, okay, I don't have the skill yet on this, but if I kept practicing, I would have it. So yeah, speaking of practicing, I've always wondered with band directors I've had, like, how often do you actually practice?
Man, I want to practice. I'm actually going to be taking some private lessons. The job that I have right now has given me a little bit more time. Like, there's no marching band. A lot of and I'm dealing primarily with middle school, so after school is not that's not as big of a commitment for me. There's things I can do, but the middle school kids tend to be doing football and all these other athletic activities, different clubs, and so it's not really that much of a need at the moment for after school from me. So I intend to practice a lot. At the same time, I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and so they often don't have a high tolerance for me practicing, or they want to practice the instrument that I am trying to practice. So the short and pitiful answer to your question is not nearly as much as I want to. I mean, I'm lucky if I can get like a solid 15 to 20 minutes in about 4 times a week. I'm lucky.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I always wondered, like, if you're an adult person who is not trying to be like a professional musician, what are some ways for you to stay involved as a musician or keep your skills up? I mean, I'm not, yeah, definitely asking for myself because I guess as an example, after college, like I played in like our wind ensemble through college, and I was in a jazz band a couple of years as well. And then when I lived in Atlanta, I was in a community group. And then when I moved to California, I was in a community group. But now, like since the pandemic, and I also moved to a different place, and I haven't looked to see if there is a music group. And I'm like, I still want to like keep my skills up. I feel like I've spent so much of my life playing clarinet, and I guess I've just been like, well, what can I do? It's kind of boring to play in ensembles still, where like I play a lot of the same music I played in high school. Like I'd love to get better at jazz because I know I need help with like getting over myself and just improving more and stuff. So I'm like, maybe is it taking music lessons or yeah, but I don't know. Any thoughts there?
Um, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with finding like community organizations and stuff of that nature. I mean, there's always people that want to play. There's there for all of the people that are in high school programs, probably across the entire United States of America. I would probably say like maybe only 5%, 10% of those even decide to do it at the collegiate level, or major at the collegiate level. So there's all kinds of people that still want to that probably still want to play. They just don't have the opportunity. So finding those groups, if there's not that group, I guarantee you there's at least like 30 people in your city. I don't care how big it is, that if you wanted to put it together, they would be on your side to try and figure out, okay, sure, I will show up. What do you need to help make it happen? When it comes to jazz, it's a little bit harder just as I think you run into that opposite problem. Like, we've all done, I think everyone's done stuff from a marching band, everyone's done concert band, but not everybody gets the opportunity to do a jazz band, just because those numbers are smaller. And people, instantly think, oh, I got to improvise. Nah, I'm not going to do that. But if you want to keep practicing, and one thing I try to impart on my kids and my students is just play with stuff on the radio. I'm showing my age. Play with stuff that you are listening to on like streaming music or your Apple Music, your Spotify, your YouTube. If there's like a jazz tune that you want to learn to play it by ear off the record. There's a great benefit in being able to do that. That's a form of ear training too. So if you want to improve the jazz, like just don't pick John Coltrane stuff because that's out of control. Don't pick Brecker. That's also out of control. But you probably have listened to a couple of things. You're like, okay, I can maybe kind of figure out a couple of things to play. That's a great way. And then if you can find a couple other people, a couple other a clarinet player or a trombone player and a French horn player that are interested in playing jazz, you got 3, and then you just find some guitar players always like to play. Pianists are hard to find. Bass players, I mean, there's probably one somewhere that would enjoy yet another thing thing to do. And drummers are everywhere. Apologies. So just put a little group together. If you're not playing for money, that alleviates the stress of that we have to be good. You just get together on a Wednesday and decide to have a little set list and play a couple of things and see how it works out. There's also great like play-alongs and stuff of that nature on YouTube. You can always just type in like an F blues and noodle away at F blues at various tempos in various styles, just to have fun playing. Because the only way that you get back to that place where I think you feel comfortable, even in being uncomfortable on the instrument, is when you're in a habit and a routine of playing. And so I'm like, don't even worry about practice. Just have fun on your instrument. I don't care if you're chasing ducks around. I don't care if you're doing it to annoy the kids or you're getting back at your neighbors if you live in an apartment. whatever, just playing every day is the thing that kind of gets things moving, because you're having fun. You're doing it because you just want to, and then you start to seek out, other ventures, in other ways and other things to do.
I love that. I just, yeah, I think you're like, I didn't even know there were play alongs on YouTube. That's pretty cool. I think for me, like the idea of trying to listen to something and play along with it super daunting, because I never was good at like playing by ear. I'm always like sheet music. I know how to do sheet music, but it's definitely, that's a good practice and something that would help me grow. So yeah.
I mean, what is one of my things? Oh, Josh Redman. I really like music. Josh Redman, direct tenor saxophone player. But I tell people, I'm like, when he picked up the instrument, he probably sounded like hot dumpster fire trash. And he sounded like hot dumpster fire trash for a good while. He just kept doing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, to the point that he started to sound pretty good, right? And so we only hear of like these Josh Redman or Eric Marienthal or Eric Alexander or Bob Reynolds. I'm just throwing out names because I can. But we only hear about these people after we've heard them do amazing things. It's not like they ever video and record the crap that came out of their instrument long before it got them there. So I think a lot of us get it into our head like, oh man, I've got to sound amazing the first time I do this, or like, man, there's not a lot of hope. And it's like, no, it's, this person started when they were 12. They didn't know any better. They just ran through every musical brick wall as many times as it took to just knock the wall over and then keep running. Once we become older, we're like, oh, well, look at that wall. There's clearly no way I can get through it. Yes, there is. Just keep running into it, And you're obviously, our rate of growth will be much slower because we're not young. We don't have a bazillion hours during the day. We don't have people cooking for us. Do you miss that? I miss that. We don't have people reminding us that we should probably take a bath. We're responsible for all this cognitive load. But at the same time, I'm 40 years old. There's no reason why by 60, if I wanted to run into the brick wall every single day, because that was my goal, well, I couldn't knock that thing down by the time I was 60.
Yeah, I think that's good life advice in general. Yeah. So what's a day in the life like for you, and how has the music teaching changed since the pandemic? For instance, I see, I live near a high school and I see them practicing outside. So I'm very curious about that.
Gosh, I actually haven't been in front of an ensemble. Well, I can't say that. I haven't been in front of a school ensemble, like in my teaching job, in my teaching line of work since, I guess it was March of 2020, like just before our large group performance evaluation, the day before they shut the event down. And so I've not conducted any of my school ensembles since that point. So it stinks. But it's, on one hand, I think it's been, it sucks because we just haven't had the opportunity to play with people in a setting similar to the one that we're used to. But I think there's also a lot of positives that could have come out of this. I mean, to be quite honest, I'm like, anybody that wanted to practice and didn't want to deal with school, you just came off of a great excuse to not overinvest your time in school. So I'm sure, like, all over the place, there's a couple players that are going to be amazing that we'll hear about 5 to 10 years, because every day that somebody else was trying to find motivation, that person was just playing their backside off every single day because that was the thing that they were doing. I also think that for a lot of us educators, it's given us the time to not be in front of ensembles all the time and stop and figure out, okay, what skills could we add to our teaching repertoire? Like, I'm using a ring light. I'm real good. I've always been good with computers, and it's doing computer science as a major for a short period of time, but like, I've gotten really good at using spreadsheets to organize and information. So I can get a library down, lickety split. I can keep track of kids and sort of like system information stuff relatively fast. I now have a bunch of YouTube resources because I myself was looking for some inspiration and knowing these type of YouTubers that are out there. But it's also been fun watching how those people have improved their skill set because they didn't have much time. Chad Leftwich Brown is this amazing tenor saxophone player. And the man was just constantly gigging busy all the time. And then the pandemic hit. And so he's been doing a lot of amazing educational resource stuff online for free. And so I just think, yeah, it sucks that time we weren't together, but there's so many cool innovations and ways, I think, and approaches that have come from that forced time to think and slow down that I think we'll make the gains back up in no time. You know, we'll make those gains back up in no time.
Yeah. I can relate to the spreadsheet thing. It's such a nerdy thing, but I'm like, oh, I'm so organized now. It feels good. So yeah, we've talked a bit about work, but part of this is talking about just kind of life in general. And I'm curious to know about what do you do outside of work to decompress?
Oh man, things that involve my children because they're always trying to hang on. I am my kids' favorite jungle gym. I really am. So since we've moved up to the Atlanta area, we do hikes. We try and every weekend just find, a cool city to go walk around and spend some time together in, or, some sort of hiking trail or a park. So that's been great. I am, I was, and I don't have my materials, but I was getting into, for fun, like carpentry and woodworking. Because it was fun to do. So, trying to keep stuff up around the house. Like now we're renting, so unfortunately that aspect is gone. So I don't do as much, but and then I've gotten into also just like playing around with iMovie and Logic, creating electronic music. Nothing is out. I'm not selling anything. I'm not trying to make anybody listen to anything. It's just simply like for my own personal enjoyment, just playing around. With those things, and I guess I can also include cooking. I spend a lot of time cooking for the family. Even though my girls, nothing makes me more upset than I'll cook and I'll think, yes, Dad has done a great thing, and then the girls will taste it, bite it, like, nah, I don't want this. I want the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Okay, all right, I'll put this salmon away. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not hurt.
Your palates are not sophisticated enough for my cooking skills. But yeah, speaking of your wife, so from what I understand, she's the principal at your school. So is she your boss? How does that work?
So she is the head of the middle school. However, I actually report to the arts coordinator. So it's this unique situation that was already in place before we got there. We have tons of jokes about it. As a matter of fact, when mornings are horrific right now, we're on day 2 officially of having the kids back. But my girls are just, they're not morning people. They take so long in the morning to get ready. It's almost like I have to wake them up and allow them to be up before they wake up. But this morning we were running late. They weren't late, but I was. It's like drop off starts about 7:25, 7:30. I'm supposed to be at school at 7:30. Clearly that's a time obstacle that cannot be met. So as we were coming home today, my oldest Amelia, I was talking with her and I said, you weren't late this morning. You're not, so don't say you're always late. You weren't late this morning. Dad was late, but you girls were fine. You don't actually start till 8. She goes, did your boss yell at you? Really? Really, 6-year-old? That's what we're going to do? Because she knows that my wife is the head of the middle school. So we have a good time. We have jokes, but it's not awkward at all. We work well together. We've always worked well together. It's just now that we're actually working in the same environment. It's interesting, but it's new and it's different. But it's been working. It's been working really well so far.
That's great. And yeah, and speaking of your kids, are you hoping that they'll go into music?
So both, amazingly enough, both girls enjoy singing. My daughter was taking piano lessons before we moved. We're still trying to figure out kind of how things will situate and where we might be able to find a piano teacher to put her back in. But they both enjoy music. I used to hate the concept of Kids Bop. The kids wore me down. Now I don't have a problem playing Kids Bop, mostly because it keeps them from fighting with each other in the back of the van. And the 2-year-old sings as well. I don't know how she remembers lyrics because I don't understand what she's saying. Like to me in a conversation, most of the time, I can kind of pick it up. But what I find most interesting about the 2-year-old is that she catches upbeats. And I know that may not sound amazing to most people, but I'm like, if you're a musician, the concept of the 2-year-old, like just kind of on upbeat, just happily in time. Oh man, that's crazy. Like it's, even if she doesn't go into music, the fact that she's done that, I feel like a successful parent musician. And my 6-year-old, she enjoys harmonizing.
Yeah, like that's amazing. I struggle with both of those things. That is great.
So hopefully I will not be the failure of a music parent. Sorry if anyone's like watching this or listening to this, that you're not a failure. Your kids maybe didn't go down that rabbit hole, but I am hoping my kids go down that rabbit hole. I think I've convinced Amelia to really give a look at bass. I showed her some videos of Esperanza Spalding singing and playing, and she was just mystified. And she's like, "Can I do that?" Oh yes, yes you can.
Yes, you can. That's funny. I didn't even know like Kids Bop was still around. Are they on like 40 or something?
I think we're on 45, 46 now.
All right. Wasn't too far off. I remember when the first one came out, I think, then they just like kept going. Yeah. So yeah, you were talking about your family or your dad being in the military. So how often did you move around and where all do you live?
So when I was born in California, Monterey, Fort Ord,
Oh, I
if
love
you are
Monterey.
okay. Yeah, so that is actually home. I'd love to go back. I have not been back since I left when I was 6 years old. And then when I was 6, we moved to Germany. So we were in Germany from 6 to 12. We were only stationed in 3 locations for 2 years apiece there. So Heilbronn was the first place, Kreilsheim was the second, and then Babenhausen was our last 2 years. And then we came back to the States. So it was only that 6-year period of time, but we did get a chance to kind of like explore France a little bit and Belgium and a couple other places over there back in, let's see, that would have been, for anybody that wants to throw dates out, let's see, 87 to 92, I believe, 1987 to 92. As a matter of fact, my dad still has a piece of the Berlin Wall because that came down, I think, I remember maybe 1991, but my dad specifically like went out there to go get a piece of the Berlin Wall and bring it back home. That was a fun thing that fun story he relayed for us.
I think I have a piece of the Berlin Wall, but it's like when you buy in a souvenir store, that sounds like a legit Berlin Wall. I'm like, that could be some just wall, like, I don't know, piece of concrete or something someone painted. So after Germany, did you move to Georgia or where'd you go?
Yeah, we moved to Georgia. I mean, we stayed in Brooklyn for a short period of time. Like military moves are always ridiculous. They will have you move before you necessarily have a place to an off-base place to live. So for families, it can be a little disconcerting. So my dad took some time off. We lived in Brooklyn with his mother for a while, just a couple months, and then drove down from New York to Georgia, and that's where we lived from the time I was about 13 on through. So that's like when we showed up a couple days before my 6th grade was supposed to begin, and again, Freddie, I doubt anybody's gonna find any sympathy with this story, but because this is like before the internet and before like instant information went out, we still had like satellite radios, so when I was leaving Germany, crisscross was big. Like the guys that will wear the pants on backwards, crisscross will make you jump. And I missed the bus. And so Being a conscious kid coming back to the States, I was like, oh man, I'm nervous. Like, is everybody gonna be wearing the pants backwards? Is that the style? Should I do that? And I just wanted to let you know that I'm so thankful for the fact that I did not follow through on wearing my pants backwards, because my first day would have been even more tragic than it already was had I made that decision.
Yeah. Well, and I also lived in Germany, but I was like kind of the middle school time, and I felt like there was a big like reverse culture shock, like moving back to like the States and like in small town Georgia. Did you find that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because being over, so you live in Germany, and it's like when I was there, it literally felt like if a new kid showed up, no one even cared where
Right.
that kid came from. It was just new kid, yay! Let's all go meet the new kid, which I'm sure is probably like scary to some people, knowing that I'm about to move this new place and everyone's going to bombard me because I'm new. Um, but coming back to the States was like the opposite. So I'm expecting kind of like what I had done to other, and kind of what was taught over there. Like, there's a new person. Like, everybody wants to meet the new person, ask the questions, figure out what they like. Do you have anything cool from the States that you brought, right? And so when I moved to Georgia, it was just Hinesville. It was just like, oh, hey, look, it's a kid. And I was like, okay. So, just lots of people. Just it was a very strange feeling. The fact that I was born in California and then moved to Germany meant I didn't have a Southern accent at all. My dad was my dad's an immigrant. His family immigrated from Guyana, and that's why they all live in Brooklyn. So I kind of had a little bit of my dad's family side of the accent, side of the family's accent. Just that was hard. It was hard to be back here and just kind of like be so uncomfortable being the exact same person that I was previously. Like it kind of it got me to a point where I kind of realized, I'm just gonna be comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's just the way it's gonna be. Like, I'm not worried about anybody else liking or giving me a seal of approval. I'm just gonna do what I do, and hopefully there's a few other people that I make friends with, and thankfully through that wonderful band class that I had and my love of comic books, I made some friends, and it turned out okay.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of comic books, I've seen on Facebook that you like you're into those Marvel TV shows. So were you reading Marvel comic books all the like, or those ones you liked?
Oh my gosh, when I was in Germany, like, I pestered my parents to get an allowance. I don't know how much it was. I know it was probably more than traditional, like than kids would have gotten at the time. And I would just take that money and blow it all at the comic book shop on base, buying Spider-Man comics. Like, Spider-Man was my comic of choice. And I collected. I didn't really collect the other ones. I collected Spider-Man, and then I also read other ones that looked cool, and enjoyed the artwork. And then when the shift started to go into the X-Men, like, that was my next big comics. So, like, Iceman and Wolverine and everybody, all those different characters. And then I stopped probably about high school. And so, yeah, when the Marvel movies came out, I think it was the first Iron Man, and I was watching that movie, and it just brought up like all those like childhood memories. And it gets to that end of the movie, Robert Downey Jr. says, "I am Iron Man." And I looked over at my buddy and I said, "I think they're just going to keep making these movies, and I think I'm just going to keep seeing every one of them." And yeah, I've seen every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I've seen all the television shows. I did miss What If, but I'm planning to catch that this weekend to get caught up. I might even check out the MODOK series that's on Hulu. So yeah, I'm a nerd. I gotta embrace who I am.
Oh, totally, totally. Yeah, I'm like like I'm kind of into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I haven't seen everything, so I can't say that like I'm like all in. Like I still haven't seen Black Widow, which I'm mad about, but it just hasn't happened yet.
See, I'm not that person who's like so deep into the lore that I'm like trying to nitpick every movie. I mean, I'm just glad to be entertained. Like I don't need to critique. I just like to be entertained. And those movies and the shows have done exactly that. They entertain me, and then I walk away, and I'm happy because I got to kind of like go back to being a kid for that period of time. And then, as soon as it's over with, I grown up Mike comes back out, and we keep it moving. But I really appreciate, um I just love those movies. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, how, like, can you imagine being an actor and you have all of these great credentials, right? And you've done all these great roles, you've worked with all these great directors, and then you do a Marvel movie. And that tends to be so, I mean, why would you do that if it wasn't just fun and just a good hang? Like that's what as musicians we talk about all the time. It may not be the best pay, and maybe we're not playing the best music, but sometimes it's just being around all of these other really cool people that makes the gig well worth it. So, and the fact that as a fan I get to watch it all, it's a lot of fun.
They seem like they have a lot of fun with each other too, the actors, and they like make like I love how there's so many Chris's and they all like there's so many jokes about that. Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, I really enjoyed having you on the show, Mr. Nestor. Still can't call you anything else.
You can Mike is fine, or
Mike.
Michael, or that guy. I mean,
that guy.
It's good.
Gotta practice. It's really, really great catching up with you, and really enjoyed the talk about music. And I'm gonna have to like find some of those maybe those let's play or not let's play. Those are the video games. So the play along music videos just to try out.
Well, if you're just like, I need a place to start, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to just like pop on, find something, send it to you, and be like, okay, here you go, start here.
I might just do that. Be awesome. Well, thanks again, and it was great having you.
It was awesome talking with you, Rachel. Appreciate it.
Bye. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single show. Interested in being on the show? Know someone that might be a good fit? Use the nomination form in the description.